And then just to end the first half, but it's funny, this is the, it's just ridiculous. I've showed this slide before, but I've got to show it again because I get a kick out of it every time. Somebody at NASA searched for news life on Mars and came to my website and looked at the article. Isn't that sweet irony, eh? I just haven't bothered to keep track of it anymore. And then I got another one as well from the Marshall Space Flight Center. What did they search for? I can't remember. But anyway, they came and clicked on that T-shirt shape and they found the image on my website, somebody from NASA. So with that, we'll just have a break now to get a cup of tea before we go into the second half. Okay, I'll probably skip over this, but because I've got a lot that many people might have seen this footage before. NASA is covering up an awful lot of stuff. A couple of examples that you can watch are NASA footage from STS-75, Space Shuttle Mission 75, and STS-80, where you can clearly see some anomalous bright objects coming near the shuttle, photographed in ultraviolet light. Very, very unusual footage. That's sort of going a bit away from... In fact, well, I'll just show you a bit of this one. This is from STS-80, I think. You can see this thing shooting off, and this thing travelling along, and then it shoots off in the opposite direction. That's not an ice particle. That's from the shuttle. That's from the shuttle. Soon after this footage was captured, they encrypted all the footage from the shuttle. Martin Stubbs captured some of this. Okay, more surface anomalies. That's a picture from NASA's website. Censored. I mean, to be honest, that could just be a data loss of some kind, but if it is a data loss, it's a peculiar one. This came out quite recently from Curiosity. This is only about 6 weeks ago. What the hell is this? Again, I don't know. NASA won't tell you much. This is on NASA's website. Looks like somebody's got a fossilised bike or something stuck in the rock. Looks like a handlebar coming out. But that is a real picture from Curiosity from February 5th, around that time. We've talked about the colour. Yeah, again, they lied again about this. This was the landers, this is from Spirit rover. This was a picture on the Earth, and this is the colour charts. And then when it was on Mars, it looked like this on the pictures that came back. You can clearly see it in these images. And they've changed a blue to a red. That's colour substitution. In other words, if the light coming through the atmosphere was red, and you shine red onto blue paper, you don't get red paper turning blue in red light. It will look grey or a muddy sort of black. They have used colour substitution on that image. No ifs, ands or buts. This is quite an interesting panorama from the Spirit rover. Original capture and release. There's look, photojournal.nasa. You can go and look at that image if you want. 115th of Martian Day, 2004. What the hell is that? It's like a plank of wood to me. Yeah, it does. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I thought it was. That's on a NASA image on their website. You can go and look at it. And then we've seen the rover tracks in the other video. This is mud. You can't get impressions like that in dry, dusty material. It doesn't happen. These things have got to be bound together where the ridges are when something runs over it. And it was even reported. In fact, you saw some of the reports on that earlier one, but we're going back to 2004, 9 years ago. Scientists are intrigued by the marks left by Spirit's airbags when it landed on the surface. The soil shows unusual cohesiveness, almost as if the soil grains were stuck together like mud. Stephen Quires is also puzzled. The way in which the surface has responded is bizarre. It looks like mud, but it can't be mud. That's from the mission, controller. Looks like it, but it can't be it, so it isn't. Next. NASA told us there was water on Mars in 1979. Caption from NASA's image. This colour image shows a thin layer of water ice frost. 1979. Yet they're still saying, oh, we don't know if there's water or not. And that's, again, it's a blue sky on that. Oh, we've done this really in the video. You saw this. This is Charles Schultz with his more detailed imagery there. You've seen this in the video before. Plenty of evidence for mud on Mars. Now, even more controversially, though, is larger structures. I've shown this once or twice before. Can you see it? Can you see it yet? Remember, there should be just piles of rocks on Mars. For anything to resemble that with a pyramid-shaped object in the background is rather weird. I don't know if it's a Sphinx, but looking at the surface resolution enhancement technique, which is a technique that NASA used to enhance this image, it's a mighty strange image. It's a mighty strange image. That's on Richard Hoagland's website. I've nicked quite a bit of stuff from his website for tonight. I think that was done by Mike Barra, that analysis, or possibly Mark Carlotto. I certainly didn't do it, but it's a very peculiar image. That's from 1997 from Pathfinder, an even earlier mission, which we haven't mentioned. Let's try this. Oh, hang on. Probably need my mouse for that. Yeah, Rush Limbaugh. I need my mouse to play this clip, but he basically said in a broadcast on March 4th, 2004, that he'd read a secret report called the Gore Report, and then he initially called it the Mars Report, and he said,
I have seen a highly classified report that has not been released publicly, and it probably won't be unless you consider my talking about it here to be releasing it publicly. It's top secret report, codenamed the Gore Report. It was prepared by scientists from Area 52 in New Mexico. They analyzed the Mars data. And there are some findings in this report, and I can understand why they don't want to release this, but I want to, and I don't know it all, but I want to pass off what some of the Gore report says. There was life on Mars. That's what NASA is not being upfront about. There was life up there. Everybody knows it. We can't be the only people occupying the universe. It's impossible. Who do we think we are? We're the only people God created? Sorry, for those of you who don't believe in God, only people who evolved from apes? So it's clear that there was life elsewhere, and now that NASA's kind of let the cat out of the bag, if there were habitable conditions up there, we know there was life there. In fact, they found some DNA evidence up there that compares favorably to members of the Skull and Bones Society here on Earth. These people were highly industrialized, the Martians. They were technologically superior, and they were very arrogant people. And they thought that the power and the force of their existence was all that was needed to sustain them.
The Australian Cardinal George Pell and Mars, he said in an article in the Daily Mail entitled "The Pope Condemns the Climate Change Prophets of Doom," right? He said, they were talking about CO2 and stuff, and he said, the industrial military complex up on Mars can't be blamed for that. As in, there's climate change going on Mars, and they couldn't be blamed. Does he know something? Very peculiar. Very peculiar. Talking about, as I say, CO2 emissions. Now, I believe, I'm skipping to several different things here, that a certain member of the audience, Mr. David Boyle, will be telling you more about this better than I could in a couple of weeks. I made this image myself. I think this image I picked up off David Percy's website, who's written a book called Two-Thirds about all this stuff. But I'm just showing you the tiniest bit of it. I can't accept that is a coincidence myself. There may be others in the audience who can. That's Avebury. That's Silbury Hill, overlaid with Cydonia. I think Dave has told me that there's 1,000 points of correspondence between those two images. I've just highlighted 3 essentially. That's on a scale of 14:1. In other words, what's on Mars is 14 times bigger than on the Earth. There is a story here we're not being told by NASA or anybody. Instead, they're still saying, well, there might be bacteria 1 week, and then say, no, there isn't, didn't work, it's wrong, the next week. Meanwhile, you've got images like this being completely ignored by all scientists. They cannot, it's career suicide to even think about talking about it. There is a story here we are not being told. I don't know exactly what that story is, but there is a story. So, summary for evidence of life on Mars. There are non-natural structures on Mars. That's my conclusion. You may have a different conclusion. Surface water was photographed 26 years ago in some detail by Viking. Dr. Gilbert Levin, creator of the Viking life detection experiment, says the experiment had worked. Evidence of biomarker gases being present in the Martian atmosphere. NASA has presented images that don't have the correct colours. That's clear. You just need to look at them. And we've got lots of evidence of soil moisture. You've seen bits and pieces. I'm sure if you went and looked, you could find loads more. Yeah, and there are other. I was talking to people in the interview. I'll take it out of this presentation. We've got a lot more stuff now to cover. But there are other people who say they've been to Mars. There's William Hamilton claims to have talked to a US colonel who went on a ship that travelled at 0.8 the speed of light to Mars some years ago. Media never really focused down on the discoveries of water and methane. They essentially repeat the same stories roughly every 4 years. That's what I've seen, or when there's a current Mars mission. So now we're going to move to Phobos. What's Phobos? Well, it's just a rock orbiting Mars, yeah? Phobos, the inner enlarger of Mars' 2 moons, that's what it is, sorry. It was discovered telescopically with its companion moon Deimos by American astronomer Asaph Hall in 1877. Now, some people think that's quite a late discovery date. It is quite late because a lot of these sort of moons were discovered long before that. And I'll try and hint at why that's possible. But it is very small. It's only about, I think, 11 kilometres across or something. It comes by Asaph Hall, 1877. It's named for one of the sons of Ares, the Greek counterpart of the Roman god Mars. Phobos is a small, irregular, rocky object with crater-scarred groove surface. Roughly ellipsoidal, measures 26 kilometres, 16.5 miles across at its widest point. And it revolves once around Mars every 7 hours 39 minutes at an exceptionally close mean distance of only 5,827 miles. That's blooming close because our moon is 280,000 miles away. So Phobos is damn close to the surface. In fact, its orbit is decaying already. It's going to crash into Mars at some point. Very low orbit. Very interesting. Look at these lines here, and some of these lines intersect at right angles. Now, I thought that these lines may have been created by rocks rolling along the surface in what can be called microgravity. Because Phobos is so small, it has a very weak gravitational field. And I think, if you hit a baseball, I think Carl Sagan drew this analogy once. If you were standing on Phobos and hit a baseball, it would achieve escape velocity and leave, and go off into space because it's such a weak gravity field. So you can imagine that these rocks could kind of roll round and round the moon, but I'm not so sure. And this picture's from Ceres, which is Vesta. I apologise. It's the second largest asteroid. It's 526 kilometres in diameter. So it's about 20 times, 40 times, 20 times. Can't do my maths. Something like 20 times bigger than Phobos, but yet it's still got these linear lines of craters. Very peculiar. I don't know what they are. But it's very interesting features. Now we've got these high resolution pictures. I forget when this picture was taken. Fairly recently, I think maybe like 2003, 4, the last few years. Now, there's some very interesting postulation going on about Phobos. And in fact, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name, because it's Russian. Shklovsky calculated the orbital motion of the Martian satellite Phobos and came to the jaw-dropping conclusion that the moon is artificial, hollow, and basically a Titanic spaceship. And he said this in the 1960s. I forget the exact date. Yeah, 1963, I think this was talked about. Now, when you know the orbit of an object, you can work out its mass. Okay? And if you can measure its size, you can work out its density. So you know, if you compare that with the density of other objects in the solar system, you can work out. So Phobos was way too light for its size, way too light. So he worked out from the density, based on it being some type of rock that the other asteroids are made of, they could work out that it was hollow. And this is an interesting picture here, just I stuck in. This is a recent picture because it's taken from Curiosity rover, and it's got a camera on a mast about, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet above the surface. That's a picture of Phobos taken by Opportunity from the surface. So even though it's much, much smaller than our moon, you can get a fairly good image of it with the Curiosity rover. So basically this guy calculated in the 60s that he thought Phobos was hollow, and everyone said, "Oh, get lost. It's ridiculous. Spaceship? Nonsense." But, oh dear, precise mass determination in the nature of Phobos. Now, from the recent instrumentation on Mars Express and whatnot, these fellows, I won't read out all the names, I've got a copy of this scientific letter if anybody wants it. It's 3 or 4 pages long. It was received on the 3rd of December 2009, revised on the 8th of March 2010, accepted 22nd of March 2010, published 7th of May 2010 in the Geophysical Research Letters Volume 37. And I downloaded this exact paper. We conclude that the interior of Phobos likely contains large voids. What does large voids mean? It's hollow. When applied to the various hypotheses bearing on the origin of Phobos, these results are inconsistent with the proposition that Phobos is a captured asteroid. Oh dear! So it's not a rock that's fallen into the orbit of Phobos, into the orbit of Mars. What the hell is it? I don't know. I'm just telling you what the scientific research says. But we'll move on to this idea that some of these objects may be not as we're told. And again, you can go and, you can go and check that out. You can check that paper out. It's not me telling you this. It's these guys. Now, we get disinformation circulated, and I was talking to somebody in the interval, and this article, I'm not going to read it all out, it's quite long, published in 1992, and this was meant to be the last picture from Phobos 2, this ill-fated Russian probe. It was approaching Phobos, photographing, taking pictures, and then bang, stops working, just stops working. And on the last picture, you can see this line, and this article goes to great lengths. Oh, this is a missile. So they didn't want this probe, somebody didn't want this probe to land on Phobos. No, they fired a missile at it. Well, and I'd heard that story and I'd read about it. I tracked down this article when I was putting this presentation together. There's the rest of the article. I'm not going to read it all out. It tells you about where these pictures came from and they were leaked or something. But if we go on a couple of slides, I managed to find the actual pictures, not a photocopy as that was. These are the actual pictures, and you can clearly see these are the last pictures from the ill-fated Phobos 2, which I think only took about 6 pictures before it just stopped working for whatever reason. Maybe it crashed into it, I don't know, or there's some solar flare which zapped it, I don't know. But you can clearly see this isn't a missile, it's a digital artifact. The line stays in the same place and it goes right up the picture. So it's not a missile. They also talked in this article about peculiar shadows seen by Phobos 2, the probe, on the surface of Mars. And there's quite some discussion of this. And I saw a YouTube video about this. Well, this shadow has been photographed, this odd elliptical shadow, has been photographed multiple times since. And it's actually the shadow of Phobos on the surface of Mars, which can be photographed from orbit. So there's nothing mysterious about this. Whilst I have told you that it is mysterious that Phobos is hollow, and it doesn't make sense of it as being a captured asteroid, this is not a mystery. It's known that this is the shadow of Phobos. And there are several pictures now from Mars Express and Mars Global Surveyor and so forth. So now we're going to move on. What is Phobos? What's going on Phobos? Well, I think there's something going on Phobos, because an untrustworthy fraud called Buzz Aldrin started talking about it. This article was published in the Daily Mail on the 8th of August, I think, I can't read the exact date, 2009, and we're going to come back to what these pictures show here. Buzz Aldrin stokes the mystery of the monolith on Mars. Here we go. Let's see.
We can visit other people with their habitation. We can keep track. If there's something very important to be developed from the moon, I'm not sure what it is right now. And I sure think we should identify what it is for America to make such gross expenditures again for human habitation on the moon. We can help. We can join with. Together, we can explore the moon and develop the moon. We should go boldly where man has not gone before. Fly by the comets, visit asteroids, visit the moon of Mars. There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato-shaped object that goes around Mars once in 7 hours. When people find out about that, they're going to say, who put that there? Who put that there? Well, the universe put it there. If you choose, God put it there.
Let's see, yeah. So this is what it looks like on the picture, on one of the pictures. I'm going to come back to these pictures a bit more. This unusual Mars Global Surveyor image was taken in 1998, yet that Daily Mail story was in 2009, 11 years later. Now that picture, that article in the Daily Mail, you can clearly see, if I go back to it, these are different objects, and if you go lower down the article, it references this as well. So what's going on with this? Well, I made a little video clip from this image, a bit like the other one. We'll try and have a look at it. So this is an annotated view by this chap, Palermo, who's looked at a lot of these images. He's looked at the shadow length and so on. But I made a little video clip which went over that whole image strip, and I actually found what I think is some interesting things in it. I think there could be lots of monoliths. See what you think. And you'll probably see some that I haven't zoomed in on. I don't know, but there seems to be quite a few of them. Again, we've got a very low sun angle and whatnot, but they look like more than rocks to me.
Is it possible to work out the height by the shadow gaps?
Yes, I think if you get the image resolutions on it, it's a bit tricky because of the image projection and stuff, but it is possible to work it out. I haven't worked it out, but I think it's possible. Now, we've got a couple of more very interesting images here. These two images were taken on the 23rd of March 2008 by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. These weren't mentioned in the Daily Mail article, even though they were taken a year previously. I found them separately on some other page. Can't remember how I found them. But have a look at these on a video clip that I made, just again a minute long. Be big though for that, yeah. Could be. I mean, I don't know what it is, but it's extremely peculiar. Really sticks out. But they don't talk about this stuff. And then the other one, again, they claim to have explained this as just a pile of rocks, an optical illusion or whatever, but I don't know. This was the other one that was in the Daily Mail article. It's taken in Valles Marineris. So in other words, the Daily Mail mixed together the monolith on Phobos with one that's actually, or one that appears to be on the surface of Mars. They mix the two things together. And this is actually from PSP 009-342-1725. And this is what it looks like as you zoom in. It's basically within this yellow circle area here. So you've got this sort of odd shaped hill here with a vaguely suggestive triangular appearance. I'm not saying it's a pyramid, but it's got a vaguely suggestive triangular appearance. And this is it. That's what it looks like when you zoom in. Very straight edges. You know, the Daily Mail article has the monolith from 2001, claiming, you know, that it's a version of that. I don't know. It is very peculiar, very straight. You can go and find it on that image yourself. I downloaded the original and checked that it was there, and it was. Now, the mystery to me was this. I spent ages looking for this image, because this image was also in the Daily Mail article, but they didn't give a reference where it came from. So I couldn't even find which image that came from, and all I could see was repeats of this image. So I don't know what the source of this image is. It's been featured on several web pages, but it's not on that. It's not on that image. I couldn't find it anywhere on there. So I think they're putting disinformation out. Okay, still got quite a bit to cover, so I'll probably skip through some of this quite quickly. We're now going to move further out in the solar system, away from Mars. This is just a little bit on the planet Saturn. I've only got a couple of slides for this, to make people aware of this peculiar thing. And I first came across this hexagon in, I think, about 2007, around that sort of time. But it was actually apparently discovered by Voyager, is what I've more recently read. I never heard that talked about. This is an animation. This is a stable feature in the atmosphere. And also these spokes in the rings, very peculiar. And when the Cassini probe went and tried to photograph these spokes in the rings, they disappeared. This was from Voyager. And this is a stunning image from Cassini, taken not so long ago, only 2 or 3 months ago. Here you can see a portion of the rings here with the shadow of the planet. What the hell's going on with this hexagon? They claim to have simulated this in a laboratory now. It's just basically a sort of complex effect of turbulence. Richard Hoagland claims that it's an imprint of a hyperdimensional energy, which is where it ties in with sacred geometry and this sort of thing. I tend to think there's something in that, but again, it's more speculation than anything else. But the hexagon is real. You can see it's real. It's on multiple images. Very peculiar. And I just wanted to point out this that happened in 2010. This huge storm that came up in the atmosphere of Saturn. And in fact, if you look at all the planets in the solar system, they're all undergoing change in their atmospheres. So I think that's more what is causing climate change than anything to do with it. Rob and I were talking about CO2, the CO2 lie that they're using to control everyone. All the planets in the solar system have undergone change. I've got that in my booklet there if you want that. Now we'll look at the rings of Saturn a bit. We'll play this, a couple of minutes long this.
I think the F ring is Saturn's weirdest ring. We have a new analysis of images obtained by Cassini that show the F ring is actually even more dynamic than we thought. And for the first time, we can see some of the havoc wreaked by objects about a kilometre in diameter. This movie shows the trail of one of the 500 or so tiny objects that we see punching through parts of the F ring. We've highlighted the area where these trails can be seen. These are slow-speed collisions, perhaps just a few metres per second, but they drag these glittering ice particles out of the F ring with them. Cassini scientists have been calling these trails mini-jets. They look tiny because in the full image you're looking along about 10,000 kilometres of the F ring. There's a little serendipity involved. We're actually concentrating on Prometheus. And what we didn't notice at the time was one of these tiny little trails had sort of sneaked into the field of view. But now we've done things a bit more methodically. We've actually looked at about 20,000 images and we found lots of these little guys, and some of them we just caught in the act. So far we've seen about 500 of these objects in the Cassini images. Some of them may even be the same object. What's important about these images is that these little guys are the missing link. We know what Prometheus does. Prometheus creates channels, ripples, snowballs in the airframe. But what we didn't know is what happened to these snowballs after they were created. We know also that Prometheus can probably destroy some of these things, just like it can create them, can also change their orbits. But now we've got evidence that some of the little guys actually survive, and they go on to punch through the airframe on their own. Essentially, we're taking our images of the airframe, removing the planet and exaggerating the radial scale. Thanks to Cassini, we can study all this activity on the airframe over time. Even during the time that Cassini's been at Saturn, the airframe keeps changing. It's the only thing you can rely on in the airframe. Every time you look at it, it'll be different.
So these are all